can technology transform the often overlooked and undervalued trades industry into a powerhouse of efficiency and profitability? Well, today here on Tech Talks Daily, I'm going to be joined by Sam Pillar, and he is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Jobber. So I'm going to delve into how Jobber not only addresses those operational challenges faced by service providers, but also how he aims to elevate the entire sector and turning hard-working tradespeople into what Sam likes to call blue-collar millionaires. It's a great story, this one. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Toronto, Canada, where Sam is waiting to join us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Sam. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, Neil. Thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, so I'm Sam Pillar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Jobber. And at Jobber, we make a software platform for small home service businesses. Think electricians and plumbers and landscapers, lawn care businesses. We service over 50 different industry verticals along those lines. And our platform helps those kinds of small businesses just run their business day to day. So all of their, invoicing and their scheduling and managing quotes and all their communication with their customers, all of that, back office minutia that is required to run a business, but that for many small businesses is not the thing that they're very good at. And in many cases gets in the way of them doing the thing that they are good at and the reason they started their business. So we're very passionate about small business and entrepreneurship and creating more entrepreneurship in the world and trying to help get the impediments to entrepreneurship out of the way of the small businesses who are doing that brave thing of being a small business.
Well, I'm really looking forward to getting you on the show today because, yes, this is a tech podcast, but I do get a big kick out of hearing origin stories because after nearly 3,000 episodes, people always say to me, Neil, all these leaders and geniuses and entrepreneurs and business leaders that you've spoke with, what do they have in common? Everyone's looking for that almost quick fix or the thing that they can follow. But what I always say is one of the biggest things that everybody has in common is serendipity and how the universe almost gives us a little nudge in the right direction. And yes, we need to look out for those signs. But with that in mind, Sam, can I ask you to share the story of how you met a stranger in a coffee shop that led to co-founding Jobber with you? And what was that initial conversation like? Can I take you back in time to share that origin story?
Sure. Yeah. I was just going to say, I hate to disappoint you in the audience. There is no quick fix probably, and it really is all about serendipity, and you beat me to it. I have a fairly cliche tech startup founding story that involves, a couple of software developers in a coffee shop. But yeah, I was a freelance software developer for a few years prior to starting what would become Jobber. And I was working oftentimes in this coffee shop in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where we founded the company. The coffee shop is called Remedy. It's near the university. And it was just a great place where I could go and spend, $1.75 on a coffee and sit there for, 6, 7, 8 hours, nurse that coffee and work on my projects. And while I was working there, I kept running into or sort of seeing this other guy who, was on a laptop with a black screen and code on it. And he was obviously also a software engineer. And so one day we were both standing at the counter getting our coffee for the day. And I just got chatting with him. I was like, hey, I couldn't help but notice you're a software guy as well. You're writing code like, I am too. What are you working on? Let's chat. And so we got to talking, and I told him about what I was working on, which was the idea for what would go on to become Jobber. And I had been working on a couple of challenges and just, some stuff that I was struggling with technically. And so he came over and sat down with me and very quickly pointed out the errors of my ways and was like, oh, well, if you do this over here and that over there, things should start working. And sure enough, they did. And anyways, I ran into him a few more times over the course of, the ensuing weeks and months. And we chatted more and he helped me out with more stuff. And at some point, I think we just started talking about the small businesses. So we, first started talking about technical stuff and then just sort of shifted to actually talking about the small businesses that I was that I had this like ambition or this vision to help. And he had a friend who was working at a small painting company at the time. And he had just, talked to his friend about the fact that he met this goofball at a coffee shop who was building some software that would be exactly for the kind of painting company that he was working at, and that would solve some of the organizational challenges that he was often complaining about. And that conversation got Forrest's friend really excited. And so Forrest, who's my co-founder, came back and related that story to me. And I think we started to get more excited about the idea of having an impact for these small businesses. We were getting along. And I think one day I just said, hey, Forrest, do you want to just start a business, go 50-50 and just see what happens here? I think, we get along. I think we're onto something here. There's at least one business out there that wants to be our customer. And that business that his friend worked at, Painters Enterprise, went on to become our very first customer, and they're still a customer today.
Wow, what an incredible story. And fast forward to 2024, and John, it is an award-winning operations management software for home service businesses. And looking back again, just for a moment, transitioning industries from that traditional pen and paper operations to digital platforms, it does involve significant change management. So how did you approach that transition within the home service industry? That it would have been quite a big deal, I would imagine, back then.
Yeah, it was, and it still is. So, first I would say, just sort of, to baseline, the transition is still very much underway. Most small businesses in the home service industries are still using pen and paper, or some sort of, digital pen and paper. Maybe they're using Google Calendar. Maybe they have a invoice template in, Google Docs or Microsoft Word that they use. But generally speaking, most of them are not using some kind of cohesive workflow system of record that can really help solve the business management challenges in their companies. And so that's, an important thing to understand, because, we're still very early on in our journey of helping more of these companies transition to digital. When we started, though, we started from the foundation, first and foremost, that small businesses are really important. I just talked about the story of Forrest and I chatting in this coffee shop, and, we were talking a lot about just small businesses and the fact that, aren't these, people, really great and really deserving of, great software to help them run better businesses? This is way back in 2010. So there was nothing available or very little anyways, available for those kinds of companies. But we genuinely wanted to help. We didn't just want to, exploit the opportunity to, create some, little solution that fixed some point issue in their businesses and make a bunch of money on it. We really cared about the small businesses, and we wanted to invest in understanding how we could help them be more successful. So we really spent time getting to know those early users, and the reluctant as well, because not necessarily everybody was really interested in talking to us or considering software. But we went to their offices and their shops and their basements and wherever they happened to be running their small operations out of. And we observed, we watched what their days were like. We talked to them about, what kinds of issues they were dealing with on an hour-to-hour basis throughout their days, and how they spent their evenings and their weekends, and just really tried to understand the challenge of being a small business owner, being an entrepreneur, and not just the features that we would then need to go on and build in a product like ours. Now, that experience, I think it did give us the insight that in order to be successful doing what we wanted to do for these businesses, we needed to focus on ease of use and user experience as a very top priority. And so, from the very early days of the company all the way through to now, that remains a huge priority and an area that we focus a lot of time and energy. These, small businesses are really busy. They don't have a lot of time. And the only way that our software can actually help them is if they use it and if their employees use it. So that ease of use and the user experience for those users and their employees is critically important, and something we spend a huge amount of time on. And I think is, something an insight that we developed very early on.
And I'm curious, what were some of the surprising challenges that you might have faced when introducing technology to businesses that have traditionally relied on manual processes? I would imagine you came across quite a few, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that, we started way back in 2010. That's when I met Forrest in that coffee shop. We didn't launch the first version of Jobber until 2011, but this is ancient history at this point in technology terms. And going back that far and thinking about some of those early conversations that we were having with small businesses who, we wanted to become our customers. And pretty early on, we were having conversations with people all over the place. They weren't just in our own backyard. They were, we were on the internet, so they were also kind of wherever they happened to be out there in the world, many of them in the United States. But one of the things that was really surprising was how much distrust there was of the cloud. So, back in 2011, 2012, even, it was still the case that a lot of small businesses believed that software should come on a CD and it should be something that, they install on their computer and they have full ownership and control of. And that was something that we had to spend a lot of time educating the market on. And especially in these small business industries where, maybe people were a little further behind the times and sort of, understanding what sort of developments were happening in software and using software online. So that was an interesting one. I think the other one that really stands out is that inertia is just an incredibly strong force, especially when it comes to small businesses and small business processes. I think, small businesses have all of the right intentions and they want to invest in improving their companies and their businesses and being more successful. But like I said before, they are just so busy. Like they're very busy. Their phone's ringing off the hook. They've got, issues with jobs and issues with employees, and they're, somebody's quit or they've had to fire someone and they've got to go find somebody new. And there's a never ending revolving door of crap that they're dealing with. And so, implementing a new software tool in their business is something I think many of them really know that they knew that they needed to do. And this is the case today as well. But there's so much in the way of just getting to that thing that they want to do. And so it was very common in the early days to have sort of, and have these businesses kind of abandon the transition and fall back to pen and paper and, come back next year to try again. And sometimes you would see that, multiple years in a row, and you'd kind of get to know some of these businesses who keep trying and eventually get there and then see the benefits of automating their business.
And for people that are listening to us today and hearing about Jobber for the very first time and trying to understand the problems you solve or the value that you bring to these businesses, Jobber does aim to enhance efficiency and profitability for small businesses. And I love how you're using technology to do that. But to bring it to life, can you offer a specific example or use case of how your platform has maybe transformed a small business owner's daily operations, just to bring everything we're talking about to life here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the amazing things about being in this kind of space with, hundreds of thousands of service pros using our product is that we get to hear just, a ton of stories. And, and every one of our customers and all of the entrepreneurs in these spaces, they all have very unique histories and backgrounds and stories about how they got to where they are and why and what they're doing now. And of course, what a product like Jobber does to help them, run a better business, but also because their businesses are so intertwined in their lives to just have a better life as well. And so, some of the stories I think about, this guy, Matt, at a company called Adair Tree Care, and our arborist and tree care is one of my favorite industries that we serve for, reasons that I won't get into now. But, he's talked to us about the fact that prior to using Jobber, he would work during the day, roping up trees and doing, his actual, trade. And then he'd get home and he's got a family. And so he would, spend a bunch of time with the family, or a little bit, have dinner anyways. And then pretty quickly have to get on the computer and would spend hours, usually until midnight, invoicing customers and just dealing with all of the administration on the back end. And so once he started using Jobber and all of that invoicing activity and all of that sort of back and forth with customers and, chasing payment and all of that was happening automatically, he realized he could come home from work and, actually sort of have dinner and then play with the kids and spend time with his wife and just invest in the personal side of life, which I think is so hard to do when you're an entrepreneur and you think, oftentimes rightfully so, that you really need to spend an inordinate amount of time on your business. And I think, that's a sacrifice that for a lot of people is really difficult, and one that I think we have the ability at Jobber to help give people time back. I also recently spoke to maybe another example here. I spoke to a business owner who was just relating a quick story about how he's got this industrial shop, sort of like a shop for his lawn care business. It's in an industrial area of the city. And every day he would have his guys gather there in the morning before going out for the day. And so they would all drive their trucks out to this industrial area, get their day sheets and jobs for the day, and then they'd head exactly right back where they came from, into the city. And so they're all like, why are we wasting all this gas? Half hour there, half hour back. And, we could all sleep in a little bit later if we didn't have to all meet here. And so with all the jobs and schedules organized in Jobber, and all of the employees having our app on their phones, they can just start the day from, when they leave the house in the morning, instead of having to get organized at some shop. So there's examples like that I think that, are maybe sort of small individually, but really add up into a significant impact for these kinds of businesses.
Love that. And as a techie who's enjoyed such a long career, spanning roles in software development and consulting before founding Jobber, I'm curious, how have those experiences shaped your leadership style and how you approach business strategy? Because I imagine it's one of those, like the Steve Jobs quotes, where you can't join up the dots looking forward, but it's only when you look back that some of those pieces, you see how they all fitted together. But what have you experienced here?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, pre-Jobber is a really long time ago for me. It's funny talking about, 2010, 2011, this is, 14 years ago. It's only every once in a while that actually I'm faced with the reality that I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm not really sure, if the experiences prior to Jobber have shaped me that much. I worked in the service industry for a little while. I actually did work at a lawn care company back in high school. And then, after university, I worked in the service industry for a little while. And that taught me a lot. I think everybody would benefit from working that kind of job for some period of time, actually. And, in my life now, I can tell a lot about a person who treats service staff of any kind poorly. And I incorporate that into sort of how I think about, recruiting and talent at the company, but also friends in my personal life, and I guess leadership as well. But I think most of what I have learned about, leadership and business and strategy, I've learned in my career at Jobber, and my role here has evolved an incredible amount over the years, as we've grown from just Forrest and I in, those early days in the coffee shop to nearly 800 people just about today. So there has been, I think at least 10 or 12 different versions of the company and versions of my job. And I've had the opportunity to learn a lot across those transitions. One of the things I think that I've learned and maybe learned through, sort of the school of hard knocks a little bit, is the critical importance of consistency. I think you cannot sprint your way to success. And, especially in a business like this, or, doing the kind of thing that we're doing here, where there is the opportunity to really transform an industry over a long period of time, you have to really be, devoted and disciplined about, how you use your time, and ensuring that you are showing up with consistency and not in sort of, fits and spurts and a lumpy basis. I heard this quote once, time is the friend of the consistent and the enemy of the inconsistent. So I think over a long period of time, it's an interesting sort of, foundational strategy as well, to understand that if you can just keep showing up and do the right things, even if they're boring, but you do them consistently over time, your opponents or your competitors who maybe have less of an ability to do that, will eventually shoot themselves in the foot and then the other foot too. So I think that's something that I've learned in my time here.
Yeah, 100% with you. I hear that's something else I hear a lot. And I also had a guest on here recently, and he dropped an amazing stat. I think it was 80% of the overall global workforce, which is something like 2.7 billion people, are deskless. They don't sit in an office. They don't sit at a desk in front of a computer. And I wanted to highlight that stat because the home service industry is crucial, yet often undervalued. So how does Jobber help elevate the work of tradespeople and service providers in the eyes of their community? Because, as I said, 80% of the global workforce is not at a desk. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is an incredible statistic. And home services, these industries, you're right. They're overlooked. They're underappreciated. This is a long arc trend as well. And it's leading to a sharp labor shortage, especially in North America, if we kind of zoom into that context. And it's, same in UK as well. I'm sure you feel it. There's a shortage of labor in these industries at a time when the existing labor force is retiring at a high rate. Average age of people in construction and the trades is increasing and people are retiring. And we also have an aging housing stock that needs more maintenance than ever. So it's an interesting time for this challenge to be faced, not just, by, I think the industries themselves that are providing the services, but for consumers and the general public, because it's our stuff, it's our homes, it's our offices, it's all of the physical space around us that is at risk and is going to suffer if these industries are under-resourced and continue to be underappreciated and overlooked. And I think this is it's for decades the assumed path for smart kids, especially smart kids that have the means, was to go to college or university. And I think this has created a stigma, with respect to a path of vocational school and going on to do blue collar work. And I think this is just totally backwards. It is kind of a ridiculous situation that we've twisted ourselves into to believe that, one is better than the other. It is difficult to find a better opportunity to create success than in the trades today. You can earn a living while learning a valuable skill. They call this earning and learning in a lot of vocational schools. And then you can go start your own business in a market that is preloaded with excess demand. And all of this, of course, while, college and university grads, unfortunately, will struggle to pay off student loans in many cases for many years, decades, or their entire lives, as we're starting to see and to find out. It's a crisis. So I think not enough people realize the potential in the trades. And I think we're at Jobber, we're doing what we can to help create more. Well, the way we think about this internally is we want to create blue collar millionaires. We want to create more blue collar millionaires. There's a lot of blue collar millionaires out there already, more than I think many people realize. And, we do what we can to try to elevate the station of these kinds of jobs and these industries. We produce a periodic research report called the Blue Collar Report. We have another one coming out shortly, actually. And this highlights, some of these issues, and some of the perceptions maybe that exist, amongst kids. The last report that we did was focused primarily on Gen Z. And I think Gen Z is a great example of a generation that is going to, I think, grab a hold of these opportunities. It's like 75%, I think, of people that we surveyed, Gen Z that we surveyed, want to be an entrepreneur. They want to own their own business. Something like 11% of them have already started one. So I think they'll see these opportunities and jump at them. I'm really optimistic about that. We also sponsor an annual grants program that we've distributed about $500,000 to small businesses so far who have inspiring come-up stories. And of course, also we invest huge sums in building our software platform that exists solely to help these businesses be more successful. And so yeah, we're kind of engaged across the spectrum, trying to raise awareness and change the perception of blue collar work and just create more opportunities for success for, people young and old to get into small business entrepreneurship.
So many great points there. And if we were to zoom out for a moment, just looking at that broader landscape, are there any emerging technologies that you see maybe playing a significant role in the future of operations management for small businesses? I suspect you've got your eye on lots of things because everything's moving so fast now, but any emerging technologies that excite you at the moment?
Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be a podcast in 2024 if we didn't talk about AI. So, and of course, I mean, as is the case, across the field, AI has a huge potential, to help our customers get more done with less, essentially. And I mean, that is an important priority for small businesses, kind of, no matter their stage, there's just always an abundance of things to do and not enough resource to do it with. And so, some of the generative AI tools that are available already, we're seeing, early adopters find creative ways to incorporate it into their workflows and their systems. So, and we've already built some AI functionality into Jobber to help our customers get answers, for example, to bespoke questions about their business's performance and how they can improve it or where they can look to make changes or adjustments. And we see a ton of potential more. We're doing a lot of work in this space and see a lot of, just a lot of opportunity to enhance the quality and speed of the customer service that our customers are able to deliver to their customers. And also just to keep further automate the back office work of running a small business, which has been the charge for Jobber for many years. I mean, this is the thing that we are expert at, minimizing the stuff that gets in the work of our customers going out and actually doing their work. And so, this is a really exciting time to have a set of technologies coming along that accelerate our ability to do that for our customers. And so that's exciting. And then the other point that I would just make really quickly is, and this is again in support of the home service industries and blue collar work. A lot of people are concerned and really worried about what generative AI and what, other further developments in AI are going to mean for people in all kinds of industries and, workers, in particular, white collar workers. And I think, blue collar is an area where it's hard to imagine. I mean, of course, there are some industries where there will be some automation, but it will be a long time, I think, if ever, before you've got some, fully automated, AI driven thing, renovating your bathroom or fixing your roof or, hauling defective furnace or HVAC system out of your crawl space and installing a new one. These are jobs that require, people and a tremendous amount of dexterity to do. And so it's kind of a safe haven in many ways for workers and for young people who are thinking about, creating businesses that can sustain over a long period of time.
And for anybody listening anywhere in the world, in particular entrepreneurs, maybe they're looking to disrupt traditional industries. Maybe they're hesitant to take that first step. They've got so many things holding them back. Other than speak to that guy in the coffee shop, is there any advice that you would offer to anyone?
Yeah, I would say two things. The first is, I think it's smart to focus on opportunities that nobody else is looking at. I think oftentimes, you'll look at sort of an untraditional a traditional space and, why is nobody else, disrupting this or working in this area? Oftentimes it's just because it's not that exciting. But you want to play in the blue ocean, not the red ocean. So I think it is smart to look for those opportunities that everyone else kind of seems to be overlooking, even if they're not necessarily, whatever the, hot new thing is. But that was certainly the case for us with home service. The second thing is that, and this is maybe the more important one, if impact matters to you, these traditional industries are often the ones where the users need you the most. They need an entrepreneur to come in and create a better option for them. And again, this was the case for us in home service. We fell in love with our customers and with entrepreneurship and just, small business people who, salt of the earth, they're just, grinding it out every day to try and, create something from scratch, to create employment for people in their community. They get in small businesses, at an outsized rate, get involved and invested in the community. They're really important to have around, and they contribute, a tremendous amount to GDP of, modern economies, and they're just really important. So for us, I mean, that was something that we saw like, hey, we can have a really big impact here in an area that really matters and where people are going to really appreciate and really need something better. And so I think looking for those, traditional spaces that are not getting any attention, those are the places where you can oftentimes have the biggest impact.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for sitting down and sharing your incredible journey with me today. And I always ask my guests to leave one final gift before I let them go. And for you, I'm going to ask you to leave everyone listening with the gift of a song that we can add to our Spotify playlist. It could be either soundtrack to your career, something that means something to you, or just something you're into today. It can be a guilty pleasure, but what song would you like to add to our Spotify playlist?
Yeah, sure. So when I was first starting Jobber, I was in a band with a couple of my absolute best friends, Stacy and Josh, still my best friends today. And Stacy Lloyd Brown is his name, has gone on to create a lot of music. I no longer play in the band, but Stacy is a very formidable musician, and he has a new album out, and there's a song on it called Fangs of Fortune that I quite like, and it's like a little bit country, a little bit slow, so kind of consistent with the maybe the blue collar theme of this interview.
Oh man, what a great choice. I'm going to be checking that out. I'll get that added straight to the Spotify playlist. And for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about Jobber, maybe they want to contact you or your team, or just find out more information, where's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously go to our website, www.jobber.com. We're very active on social media as well, Instagram and TikTok in particular. Our team does a great job of highlighting, the blue collar industries and the awesome work and entrepreneurs who are out there doing this kind of work. So I would highly recommend checking that out. It's informative and entertaining.
Well, for me, you're just somebody that embodies that entrepreneurial spirit and real rock star in this world, because I love that origin story, why you were working alongside companies to understand their problems, build software solutions to help them move faster, and how you saw that trend. You didn't just sit there and complain about it or do nothing about it. You took action. You had a solution to the problem that you saw there. And I love how also it all began in that coffee shop. So many great points that I'll remember long after this podcast episode has been put live out there in the internet. But more than anything, just thank you for taking that time to share that story and hopefully inspire other young entrepreneurs out there right now.
It's my pleasure, Neil. Thanks so much for having me.
So as we wrap up today's insightful conversation with Sam, I'm reminded of the profound impact that thoughtful innovation can have on traditional industries. And Jobber isn't just about enhancing efficiency, it's more about empowering the people behind the services that keep our communities thriving. But how can other industries learn from the strides made in the trades through technology? And what is next for businesses that are ready to embrace digital transformation? Please share your thoughts and join the conversation as we uncover the transformative power of technology in our everyday lives, our work, and indeed world. And you can do all that, as usual, by emailing me, techblogwriter@outcom, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. Other than that, I'll be waiting in your podcast feed with another guest bright and early tomorrow. But thank you, as always, for listening today. And until next time, don't be a stranger.